So sometimes you guys, you got to just take a little break from stuff, or your mind kind of goes places it probably shouldn't be. So I was trying to take off this bolt. There's another bolt right here, and I was getting down into this crevice. Not maybe that one a little bit, and then these two holes over here, this one and this one, trying to get to that bolt in there. And you should have seen me. It was going, but very easy, Lord. You just take these two off, and carburetor and the intake, whatever you want to call this part, all comes off together. So after I get these two bolts out right here, I'll be right back with you. Okay, so before I take the carburetor off, I've decided to clean it up a little bit. I know you guys have probably been dying to see me do that it's been needing to be clean. So I'm going to clean, you know, just definitely around the carburetor right here a little bit. So I'll blow some air here. Okay, people, the carburetor is off, and right here should be, there's your carburetor, there's the intake, goes up against the motor, got your set screws there, 2. Choke, manual choke, there's your throttle, so it opens her up to suck in the atmosphere and demand also fuel. Pretty much the gist of this carburetor, your inlet. Originally, these saws were made by that company right there, Lauson. Lawson, I think that says Power Products. A lot of people refer to the motors on this one the same way. And in, let's see here, 1955, see, how do you pronounce that? Tecumseh bottom out. So when you're doing your searches and everything else, you get a little confusing. But originally these saws were produced by Lawson. Same thing with the carburetors. Well, I know for sure the carburetor's, not 100% sure about the saw. But either way, when you get these, like this is from what I understand, it's a 65 model. I have seen one other place say it's a 59. Put down in there in the comments for me if you know for sure what it is. But the research that I could get, it's a 65. You know, but anyway, this for sure before, not 1955 or before, was Lawson, and this is a 65 model. So I'm assuming that even in 65 they kept the names the same on the carburetor, kept the Lawson on there, you know, for production reasons or whatever, but it was actually owned by Tecumseh. So anyway, carburetor's off. Right here's your spot where it goes to. There's a reeds in there. Or you can watch YouTube videos on reeds and how that works with 2-strokes. You know, the health of them and stuff. You do want to check that out, because I'm not taking these off right here. I'm not going to take this gasket off, I'm not going to take this plate off, and I'm not going to take that gasket off. Right there that my fingernail's on. I'm not going to take none of that off. Leaving her on there. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this cover right here. This cover. Take off this bolt. Take off this bolt. And you loosen this nut down here. Right there. On the back side of it is one of those big screws there. Do whatever you got to do with the things that I've shown you. Oh yeah, there's another tool too I want to show you guys for stuck bolts. Oh, Musty One, you may know who he is where I seen it from. It's an air chisel. It's got a little attachment on it. Got bits that you put in there and you hit the air chisel. It's got a little handle on the side that you can turn while you're air chiseling. Pretty cool. Anyway, you don't have to hold that if it won't turn on you. All you gotta do is loosen that nut and take it off. And the shield right here will come off. Be right back with you. All right, we got the cover off, so I want to get to the point to where I can get this motor off of this main housing. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this bar off. The reason I've left it on is so I can have something to handle while I'm doing things on here. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and remove it. You got one bolt nut here, screw, whatever you want to call it. There's a nut on the back of it there. And I'm not 100% sure if this screws, if after you get that off, if it's screw out or just come out. But try and screw it out first, everybody, just in case you don't want to start hitting on the back of it here and knock the threads out of it or something. And we got these two over here. And these do not have anything on the back side. Well, mine didn't anyway. These definitely have threads in the housing here, so Sears threads there, and there's another one. If I can get her to focus in there. Yep. There's the other one. So we're going to remove those three. Take off the bar. Be right back. Okay, so I got the bar off. Like I said, I'm wanting to separate this motor from the main frame, so I'm going to definitely have to take this cover off. And to do that, I don't think that's a missing screw. I think that's a pin that runs through. You can see that little separation right there about halfway on the right side, but looks like there's a separation through there, which means that's a pin or a sleeve that runs through there. Sometimes they hold things together. Anyway, you got this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt. That is not a bolt. This bolt or screw, whatever, screw, and that's it for this plate. So I'm going to remove all that, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, so that come off for me. Here's the insides. Here's the gear that runs your saw blade. Well, that gear there turns the gear on the other side of this, and then your chain goes over top of that gear, and that's what turns the chain on your bar. And then here is your main shaft off your motor. You know, the crank's connected to it over here in the back, and piston goes up and down and spins it. And this is the clutch right here, this part, and it's centrifugal. When it starts turning, this is spring loaded. See, I'm moving that, then it'll push out, and all these things right here will push off into this. That's what turns it. Now when I took this cover off, there's a bearing in there, and I'm not replacing that. So if yours is demolished, as you can see, almost all bearings will have an identifier on it. It's not on this side on this application, on this one. But I'm almost positive, if you turn it over and look at it, that right there, that piece that you're looking at, I'm almost positive, you know, I'm not going to bet my life on it, but if you put something up along his face right here, a socket or something, make sure there's, you know, it fits in there fairly snugly, and you smack it, you know, tap it a little bit, check it out, see what it does. I'd say that right there will start raising up off of there. And you can get to the bearing that way. And on the other side of that, this little area here, it should give you your identifiers to what you need. If the bearing is bad, you know, if you can run your finger down in there and it feels okay, I would keep it, because, I mean, of course it's important, but it's just a seat for this side of this gear right here. That's kind of, you know, and a stabilizer. So, but next, what I'm going to do is, I guess, I'm going to take this screw right here off. I'm going to take an impact to it, and that should bring the clutch off. And from there, I may be able to take the bolts out to separate the motor off of the housing. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so as I'm sure anybody that's using this video to restore this saw, if you don't already know, I'm sure you found out pretty quickly that working on things can be surprising, make you want to give up, you know, break things, then you have to give up, put you to a point where you really don't have a choice. But anything can be fixed, you guys, if you can find the stuff. But this is what makes this old stuff so hard, because you can't find it. So I went to take this off, and I gotta have a puller, because I can't get nothing in behind it with what I have, and trying to find something exactly for this, I don't think there's going to be a simple search for that. So what I'm doing is I've made my own puller. So also too, which most people already understand, when you work on stuff, you know, the right and the wrong way is a really wide, loose term. You know, who is it that says that doing it this way is right, and who is it that said this way is wrong? Especially when there's so many different ways of doing it. So that's one bad thing about wrenches and working on stuff. You'll have one guy that stands up and will put his life up. This is how you do this. And he's going to show you why, because he's done it before. And you'll have another guy do the same thing. So, and then that just goes on forever. So what I'm trying to say is working on things, there's a big variety and a very big, wide range of ways that things can be done. So I've made my own puller for this thing. Oh, before I forget, when I took that tank off, there's a spring right here. Sorry that I didn't say that before, but there's a spring here. Just hang on to her. Put her on in there. And also, too, you know, as I work on this, sometimes people, when they get this saw and they're trying to restore it, your application is going to be completely different than mine. You know, mine was complete except for the gas cap and the bar oil tank cap. And yours could be something completely different. Not counting the parts that you're taking off may not all come off as easy, or you might break things. You know, the variation there also was widespread. So I'm trying my best to tear all this down. Actually, at this point, I really don't even want to take this off because of how this saw is. My plan is just, I wanted to just leave these in and leave the cog in on the other side and leave the motor attached at this point after doing what I've done, because I can clean and paint around everything how it is and it'd be just fine without me removing this. So the main reason that I'm removing all this stuff is to help out people, because I can't find any information on this saw as far as disassembly and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to attempt to move forward in removing this, and if it's too much of a burden, I'm just going to stay like it is because I don't want to ruin this. And I'm sorry if that cripples other people. But I've made my own cutter for this thing, or I've made my own puller for this thing because I put up a little bit of a prop bar in here, you know, up underneath, and then I kind of laid it over here on a rag and banged on it a little bit. And this, I've got to have a puller to bring that off. So what I've done to do that is I got me a piece of this, which, like I was explaining, you could do something completely different. Actually, if you're going off of what I'm going off of, I suggest getting a piece of an 1/8 of an inch. Didn't have to be that thick, and because it's so thick, I've had to do that. I drilled the hole, and then I had to drill on down in so I can make this screw longer. So this screw fits in here perfectly. I actually got this screw for these doorknobs, or for these drawer knobs, from Lowe's to put on my drawers in here that need knobs. So I took this in Lowe's and wanted to get something longer. And the closest thing that I could find in there with their little things on the wall that I screwed it into, which really didn't fit very well, when I brung it back here, it didn't thread in good. And you don't use the wrong size stuff, guys. If you're having to force it and the threads are clean and you're still having to force it, you know, the threads ain't messed up and it's, you know, you're still having to force it, don't mess with it. This fits. And what I should have done was just took the saw in with me and find something that fit and then went from there. But so what I've done to compensate, so this will be long enough, is I countersunk that so the screw goes down in a little bit farther. Anyway, it's going to work. So the screw that I had that was almost the right size, sorry, hang on, was this one. M4.70. And then times 35, I believe, is how many threads there are per inch. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I don't know 100% on that. Just take the saw in and find what goes in there. So what I'm going to do is I've made this right here, okay? Made these two holes in this little piece of steel. And that's going to screw in, you know, 2 screws are going to go screw into them holes. And then I've also drilled out and tapped into this right here, made my own threads. And this bolt right here is going to go right in the center. So what's going to happen is that plate I'll put on here like so. And then I'll thread my 2 screws down into there. And then that big hole in the middle, I'll put this in and I'll tighten this big thing down and it'll pull this clutch off of here. And I know that I don't show a lot of my work and stuff, and I guess I need to start showing you guys when I'm working. It probably gets a little old and boring, but I am going to go ahead and attempt to do that. Oh, and if it helps, this is what I use to make the threads with. Well, actually, first of all, this is the drill bit for this hole, which is, you know, where the drill bit or where the screw is going to push down. And this is a 5/16 drill bit. And what I used to cut my threads, that same bit, was a 3/8 NC 16. And the bolt right here, make sure when you get your bolt, it's got enough thread on it. Your bolt is a 3/8 -16. That's your bolt, and then that times 4, which is 4 inches. So you might get a little variation on all your stuff that you need to do, but that should do it. Oh, And I did not use an impact to get this off, by the way. I had to do the little rope trick. Put the piston at the bottom, shoved a bunch of rope in there, turned my nut as far as I could to the left, because this is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And then I put a wrench here, and I done the little Superman trick, or whatever you want to call it, and attached this on the other end, and hooked it in there, and loose and she came. So I just wanted to show that real quick. Oh, and just a tip, which I'm sure you already know, but right here, make sure, I don't know, everybody has their own way of doing stuff, but this right here is a punch, and you can get a manual, you know, just a regular punch in your hand, put it down and smack it with a hammer. But you know, I used this right here to make my measurements with, get things straight where everything is lined up, and use this right here for a starter for my bit, my drill bit. You know, you hold it like this and you push down, it does that, makes a little place in your metal there. That way when you put your bit on here right there and you drill, it don't start going all over the place, or walking, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, if you've come this far on this thing, I'm sure you have a basic understanding of this stuff, but this is the whole reason for me doing this, just in case if you don't. I can't show you every little thing, you know what I mean, but I can get you hopefully enough to where to help you. So I'm going to attempt to remove this, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so we're going to try this here. We've got these two bolts sunk into there and into there. Got a little bit of play in that, just a little bit, just for whatever. Of course, your setup might be a little different than mine, and then we're just going to screw this in here. Sorry, I'm watching through the camera trying to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this one-handed. So now, when we twist this bolt's going to push up against that center shaft in there and pull this plate out. And these screws are attached to this, and it should pull that on out of there. So let's give this a try here. Oh yeah, look at there, she's coming right out. Yeah, boy. Easy as that. All right, when we get all this taken off there, we'll take a look at the inside and see what's underneath that. Okay, so underneath that, we've got a little key here, and it's probably going to be a half moon. And then I do believe this washer and then this piece very possibly will just pull right off of there. So I'm going to try and get that out. And I've seen where people will take a pair of these right here and kind of just grab a hold of it. Maybe be best to maybe put like a piece of tape or something down, whatever, so you don't bump and scratch. But let's see what it does for me here. I'm gonna have to, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this one-handed. I can't hold the saw down, but might put a little lube on it and tap it, do a little tiny tap or something around on it with a hammer. I think the proper terminology for this specific one, if it is a half moon, is the wood rough. Yeah, got some correct terminology going on here. Or we could just call it this thing right here. Yeah, that thing right there needs to come out. So I'm going to try and pull that out of there and be right back with you. All right, so that come off of there. And kind of inspect down in there and stuff. Make sure nothing's going on, you know, real dirty or cracks or misplacements. things that shouldn't be in there. It is a half moon to come out. And this little trick right here did work. Man was to have a big pair of these, it probably would have come right out of there. But mine, I got mine starred a little bit. I got one end of it up, like the tip of it there, away from my thumb, went up a little bit, and then I just put a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, up against it about like that somehow. Tapped it a little bit, and that brought it on out. Now fiddling with these, you might burr it up and, you know, take some off of it, and this, that, and the other, but you can bring it back all kinds of ways, you know, a little bit of grinding, whatever. I just took a hand file to mine. My hand, I held it in my left hand and a file in my right. You know, you can put it in a vise, all kind of thing you can do. Just get the burrs off of it and don't lose it, like I just about did. But now, with that little critter's out of there, these should come out, I'm thinking. Yeah, look. I bet you that's asbestos. What do you people think? 1965. I think they were still using that back then. I'd say they were. So you got your little asbestos washer also that goes. And then, yep, that's just going to pull right off of there. Got your bearing in there. That bearing is looking good. Probably will not replace that. See if I can't get the numbers off of that for you. Can't tell if that's coming in or not. I don't think that's focusing. Anyway, I'll try and get the numbers off that. Oh, right there might be. You might be able to see them right there. I believe that's your part number right over there. If that's coming. And I don't know if it is or not right there. Anyway, that came off. And that bearing, I don't see a C-clip or anything in there, so if you do need to replace that, you can probably just press it out. I'll be able to knock it out with a hammer. And then looks like there's a metal washer on here also. Just a metal washer. And then that's it. We've got two of the big bolts, or whatever you want to call them, screws that hold the motor in. There's one. Here's one. And there's going to be one behind this wheel. So I do believe, let me lay these in a certain order so I don't lose them. That's how I usually lay everything. We'll lay it like that. So to get this off, to get to that last screw, we're going to have to take our chain drive off. And looks like there's some screws behind that train drive. There's one. There's probably one on the other end that'll let that cog come off. Anyway, we're going to find out more. I'm going to take that pinch nut off of there and see what I can do. May have to use an impact on that. I'm not going to be using the Superman wrench trick with this, I don't believe, unless I can get the saw in a vise and then maybe foul this up somehow with something. But yeah. All right. So I'll try and get that nut off of there, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, I just wanted to kind of show how I had to do this. Having a vise was a must-have. Just be careful not to tighten it down too hard. And that, oh yeah, this isn't magnesium or aluminum, guys. This is actually magnesium. This one-piece frame is. I know I said it was aluminum, but it's magnesium. Anyway, I wanted to show how I did this, you know, just to kind of give you an idea on, you know, the different ways you can do stuff, you know, There's a lot of ways that you can stop this from turning. The main thing is just don't hurt nothing. I probably should have some cardboard or something, some kind of padding in there, but I Supermaned my wrenches, or whatever you want to call this little rig here. And this is in a vise. I just put that in there. It's big crowbar, and it staying in place. And I just come over here and held the saw so it wouldn't come down. Kind of placed my hand maybe about like that, I think, to kind of sturdy the thing and the saw in the vise so it don't come down. And then I used my other hand and pulled down on it, and she loosened up. So let's get that on off of there and see what's behind this cog here. All right, so I had to take this down off the vise, and I put a pry bar up underneath this. I cleaned this off and sprayed some juice down in there. There's a keyway. We got another keyway here, so this cog don't turn on this shaft. And there's also a washer. I don't know if you can see that other piece in there. You probably can't see it too well, but you can see it moving behind that washer. I'm not 100% sure if that's broken. There is a little bit of, I'll pull all the way out on this, and it does have a little bit of movement there. I'll push it all the way in, and it's got a little bit of movement. So, but I don't know if it's because that little piece in there, I'm talking there, you can see a little bit better now in there. Maybe that piece is supposed to be bound up against. Whenever it tightens down, then maybe it won't move like that. And again, we might have a bad bearing that we need to replace. So let's find out. So this will come on off. And I'm actually going to turn this when I put this back on the other way, I do believe. Because if you see how it's not real bad, but it's got some grooving in it where the chain runs up against it there. Pretty bad, I guess. Anyway, I'll just flip this the other way and it'll start wearing over here. Be brand used, man, brand used. Buddy of mine, Marty Garten, used to say brand used. And he'd call electricity juice-tricity. Juice-tricity, he'd say. Marty Farty Sartin Garten, we called him. Anyway, let's do our little key trick again with our docks. And I'll be right back with you. All right, so that come off. And looks good in there. You can definitely tell the cog was up against that washer there. Just a regular old washer. Nothing fancy. Lay that over there. And then we've got this piece. And I'm assuming, it's just a spacer, I guess. That cog may come out of there now. And there is a ridge on this one side, if you can see there. I can't see that little, oh, it's more narrow right there all the way around on this side. That's got that little ridge piece that runs all the way around. That goes up again. It goes, there's the ridge. Ridge goes on that way. And your washer goes on. And your keyway. And then your socket. I'm sorry, then your socket. Or, Lord. This goes on. Then your washer goes on over that. then your keyway, then your sprocket, and then your grip nut. Let's see here if this will come on out now. Boy, look at there, it sure is. And I'd say this is all one piece. Shaft may come out of there somehow or another. There might be a snap ring or something. But I don't need to take that apart. There's definitely no play in that. Oh, got a little chipped tooth right there. Let me check the rest of them here. I believe it'll live. It does have another spot in it too. I believe it's had a little bit of a thump one time in its life, but this thing is not going to be used for any sort of brute work. It might cut a little bit, but that's about it. So here's that bearing. That bearing seems fine. I can't get no play out of it. I can't get no play out of that bearing at all. You know what that means, don't you? That means it's staying. That play will come out of that gear that we would just check whenever I tighten that down. Let's see. Yeah, because there's no play in that. There is no play. But just in case if you need to replace this, let me see here what all this is. Oh, here, let me inspect this for a little bit and study it, and I'll come back and we'll get a little bit more on this thing right here. Bearing or seal, whatever all this is. Let me get it figured out here. I'll come back to you. All right. Upon further inspection, I don't want to confuse you. So I found another part on this. There's another one of these things that was on the opposite side, but I want to show you here in just a second how it all goes together. There's actually another keyway right there. So if you do need to, I'd say if you just flip this over and do a little tappy right in there, easily all the way around, or maybe even put something like a big socket over top of it and tap it a little bit. That socket gear will probably come right off of there. And the only identifying numbers I see is that 9, 8, 4, 6, and that's either an MI or an M1. I guess it could be ML, but yep. Probably is not made anymore. This is one of them parts where you just have to get lucky and find one for this specific saw. But anyway, what I was saying was, so with this gear completely removed, here's this side of it. And I'll lay that down. There's another one of these that we just seen a second ago. Now this one goes on a little different than the other one. So your ridge right there goes, when you put it on, there's your ridge. It goes on like this. Like that. And there's nothing else on this shaft. And then you stick it through. Like so. And then over here, next piece that goes on is your other piece like this. Now the ridge goes on first. So there's your ridge. It goes on like that. That goes on this side. And then your washer. Then you put your half moon back in there. And then you can put your cog on. And then you put your nut on, tighten her down. Now, I've done some bearing research. Oh, Lord, what a catastrophe here. This bearing inside of this piece, remember that we just took off a little bit ago. You know, the clutch was inside of this. We took the clutch off, then we took the keyway off, everything come off. That's number B as in boy, hyphen 912. I'm sorry for the shakiness, but that's going to be a B as in boy 912, if I can get it to focus. It's not going to do it for me, is it? You might see a little bit there. Anyway, that's a B912 there on top. Get that darn glare off of there. Anyway, the name brand of this is called Torrington. 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 You can kind of see it there a little bit. Torr. Let me make sure for sure. Let me get the spelling on that. And also too, when you do the measurement of it, you want to do the measurement of the bearing, you know, the hole inside, you know, from here to here. And you also want to get the width of the bearing. Here's another one right here I've got. It's the exact same one that's in there. You also want to get that part. But it's Torrington. Torrington. This one says made in the USA on it, but none of them other ones are probably going to say that. Torrington. I'm trying so hard to get that to come up. Lighting is so big with video cameras. And then that number is B as in boy hyphen 912. That's the number on it. That might show up right there a little bit. And also the other bearing for that, or for this one over here, it just says 502 on it. It says made in USA, and it says it on both sides. It says made in USA, sorry, down through there. And then it's got an NO right there. That's all it says is, or I'm sorry, that's an ND. N as in Nancy, D as in David. If I can get it to focus on that right there. N as in Nancy, D as in David, and then 502 is right there. Whether or not that's showing, I don't know. 502. But that's all it's got on it. And then of course it says made in USA right down through there. But yeah, N as in Nancy, D as in David there, and then on around right there is the number 502. Once again, I would measure, you know, get your measurements off of your bearings. This side has the same thing. Exact same thing. It's got the ND up there. Or I'm sorry, that's the 502 right there. And then it's got made in USA, and then ND is right here. That's not going to show for me though. See it a tiny bit right there. I tried cleaning it off. It won't get no cleaner. Anyway, that's that bearing. Oh, and these two screws is what holds that bearing in there. And it looks like there's just maybe a snap ring there. I can't tell if that's a snap ring or not right there. I'd say it is. But I'm not taking this bearing out. I'm not. Anyway, those two screws got to come out, and you probably tap it out from the back side. And I'll get you something to fit on the rim of this. No, all the way back in there. That rim. Right there. It looks like that might be a snap ring too, so that maybe you don't want to hit up against that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to give instructions for this thing all the way from front to back. Once you take them two bolts out on this side, that bearing may come right out of there. You know, there's all kinds of ways to press and bring bearings out. I just can't tell if that's a snap ring. Let me see. Well, that's definitely a snap ring. All I heard was ting tang. That was maybe something that only Jesus knows where that is. I have to find that. So, yep, got to find that. Be right back. All right, I found it. That was a good one now. Ting. Okay, I got it back in there. So, yes, that is a snap ring. And I'd say this one on the back side is also. But if you're replacing that, those two snap bearings may be the part of the manufacturer of the bearing. I don't think those hold this bearing in, you know, this housing. You know, it looks like that this, okay, so you see the snap ring there, and then there's another little lip right here that I'm scraping my nail on, the tip of my nail. Hang on, right there. I believe that is the edge of the bearing, and all that will just press out. Pretty sure. Either way, the bearing you get may not have these, because, you know, you got to remember, guys, these bearings that I'm showing you, these are from 1965. They probably are not going to say made in USA on them. I mean, you know, some of them may, but they were probably going to be designed a little bit differently, you know, a little bit. The main thing you want is this hole to be the same as far as the circumference, you know, also the depth of it, you know, from like right here all the way down, you know, to the other side, and then naturally the width to go in there. So do your measurements and everything. But if you are doing this saw, you know, if your bearing is bad and you're having to replace it, it's got to come out either way. So just take this snap ring off, take the other snap ring off in the back, and they come off very easy, as you've seen. And take these two bolts out and turn it over and put you something, a socket or a bearing press kit has, you know, things, or just anything that's perfectly round that'll go up kind of, you know, the edge, on the edge up in there, and tappy, and it probably will come right out of there. Yeah, so that's the bearings for that. Now the motor, I'm not taking the motor apart, but I have found some videos that shows where you can get all the bearings and all the pieces and all that stuff. So, but watch the video before you do it, because I think it's you just have to see it to see what I'm talking about. There's some of the things that you might have to get down into the comments of the two videos that I have for it, but now we have access to this bolt, and that bolt, and that will separate the motor off of this frame, ladies and gentlemen. And I was going to do that right now, and I'm going to use old daddy, wherever it's at. I'm going to, oh, right here's old daddy. Right here, this big girthy thing. I'll take and clean it up real good, put that in there and put it on reverse and smack that. Wonderful thing. Them should come right out for me. I'll be right back, and this motor should be off of here. And from that point, guys, it's going to be clean, and putting this baby together. Finally, here we go.